So today we're here to talk about construction and the critical role general contractors play in the overall project. And with me today, I've got Alan Newman, owner of
Tecton Builders.
Tecton Builders, been in construction for over 20 years, has a ton of experience.
Everything from dog houses to airports, whatever.
There you go.
I'm great at dog houses.
and so we're here to just talk about the role of the architect and the builder, and where things go right and where things go wrong, so that we can educate all you guys. So when you're choosing your architect, your builder, you have a better place where you're coming from, and you can ask the right questions. But Alan, let's start with you. Thank you very much for being here.
Yeah, thanks. Glad to be here.
How did you get into building? Like, why? Why would you choose this?
Yeah.
It's crazy because I look at all the stress that general contractors are under, particularly today with the supply chain shortages and all the crazy stuff that's going on, skyrocketing costs, all that stress. How did you get into building?
I went to school in pre-med, and I was one semester away from taking the MCAT, and I said, I think I'm going to try this building thing. I came home, and my wife said, hey, I thought you were in anatomy today, and I said, yeah, about that. I think I'm going to do something else, and that's how it started. I think that, in college, I was a newlywed. I needed to support a family. I had installed wood floors, and I thought I should just stick this out. It's okay. The money's okay. It's okay for a family. So I stuck it out, and here I am 20 years later.
Still doing it.
Sometimes I wonder why, but I think that the underlying is that there's so much pride, right? When some of my favorite things to do are to walk outside of a home that I built at nighttime and turn the lights on, right? And sit there and just stare at the beautiful house, right? And knowing that I had a hand in that, that's pretty great. The relationships that we build with clients, that's the most precious relationship, right? We're a part of their intimate life, and goals, ambitions, visions. I mean, we're there for that. So when we make something happen and they walk in and their eyes light up, I mean, that's what keeps you coming back, right?
Yeah.
It's not the hitting yourself with a hammer.
It's that end product.
I think so.
It's like, I shouldn't compare it to like having a baby. But yeah, you just keep doing it over and over again. One of the things I want to do with this discussion, I want to try to frame it in the context of what makes a good client.
Okay.
Because if you're a bad client, you're just going to get really bad responses from builders.
Sure.
Or
anybody involved.
Everybody involved.
Right.
And so you want to be a good client.
Right.
Because it's still people on the other end that you're hiring to do some of the most important stuff in your life in terms of creating your house.
Yeah.
And so you want to make sure that you have a really good relationship with your builder. If you were to kind of pinpoint what makes a good client, how would you define that?
I think first and foremost, the relationship, your relationship is, I kind of stated this before, it's a pretty intimate relationship. I mean, you have to make hard decisions, you have to make financial decisions. You genuinely are impacting, for the good or the bad, the future of this project or the future of the relationship or these people. So knowing that when I'm sitting in with a client, there needs to be a fundamental feeling and understanding of trust. Has to. If I push something across the table and I say, hey, listen, this is what it costs to excavate your home, it's not because I'm being lazy and I haven't gone out there to do, it's because I've done a tremendous amount of homework and I'm trying to help prepare you for something, right? And and so you can question, you should question, but there should be this fundamental or underlying feeling of this person has my best interest in mind. I know that's not always the case with a builder, but I genuinely enter that relationship with an owner saying, we mutually agree and we mutually want to have each other's best interest in mind. And when we do that, this will be a successful project, right?
Yeah, so that foundation of trust. And which is interesting because that foundation of trust is at the basis of virtually every single relationship that you have, whether it be marriage, kids, clergy, business, even just going to the grocery store,
Right.
and our relationship with retail people, and so how you hear so many stories of the slimy contractor or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
How does someone discern the trustworthiness of a general contractor when they're interviewing them?
That's a hard question.
Yeah.
Because you're in with a limited amount of time.
Because let's frame it this way. I've never built a house.
Right.
And that's the case with most people who do custom houses. And what we're talking about right now primarily is custom houses or renovating an existing home or something like that. And when you only do it once in your life, you are putting an enormous amount of faith in the people and the team that you hire to execute the job that you want done. And I don't even know what questions to ask.
Totally right. Well, let's start with some of the easy ones, right?
Uh-huh.
You should be asking questions like how many homes are you constructing? What does your staffing look like? What kind of resources do you have internally to help with this? Because if you say I'm building 7 homes and I work out of the back of my truck and I'm the guy. I'm the guy. I'm the guy that swings the hammer. I'm the guy that does the payment applications. Then there's some red flags there. It's too much. It's way too much work for any one individual to take from start to completion.
Uh-huh.
If I was doing one home, if it was your home and I said, okay, I'm here, I'm going to roll in every day and all I'm going to do is your home, that's fine, right? But the second we breach into multiples, you have to have additional help. So that's an easy one, right?
Yeah.
How many people are there? Do you have project management staff? Do you have superintending staff? What are your resources that are on the ground? What kind of experience do those resources have? Is this a new person? How long have they been in construction? Can I meet the superintendent, right? So am I going to see you on the job every day? No, not every day. Okay, so who will I see on the job every day? Well, maybe you won't see somebody on the job every day. Those are all simple questions that you ought to ask to help understand and at least set some level of expectation.
Mm-hmm.
So when I meet with a new client, I say, listen, depending on the complexity, I'll build between 5 to 7 homes a year, and I have multiple project managers, multiple superintendents. They all have 7+ years of experience. I have a phenomenal CFO, CPA, right? Well, those are all positives that tell you that the information I'm going to provide you is sound, right? Now, so that's step one. Just what are the bases, right? And then from there, trust is really built. Should we go through a home that I built together?
Yeah.
Why don't you talk with some of the clients that I've built for? Right?
Yeah.
Can I give you their number? What happens if they don't give you? If a builder's like, can't. Yeah, not really. I have to think about that or sleep on it. I mean, those are just red flags. A builder should have, at a minimum, should have 2 or 3 individuals that you could say, hey, listen, please call these people. And just ask them about our experience. Now, if they know, if I'm a trustworthy individual, they'll probably say, you know what, overall, generally, it was a good experience with Alan, right?
Yeah.
There's some hiccups. Right?
Yeah.
There's some issues. Maybe it was on timing. Maybe it was supply chain. Maybe are the things that were out of my control.
Yeah.
But, if overall, over 2 years of time of spending day in and day out with somebody, getting into their financials, if they can say genuinely it was a good experience, you're like, okay.
Yeah, that's pretty trustworthy. And I think it's really important for everyone to understand that there is no project without hiccups.
Yeah,
there will always be hiccups, and just expect them.
I tell my clients, I'm like, listen, you need to know what a problem is and what a problem is. Right? Like, I'm pretty good at saying, yeah, that's a problem. Yeah, that's a problem. But I won't. But if I say, yeah, that's a problem, right?
So let's go through a couple of those. Let's go through a couple of those. What's a problem? And then, what's a problem?
I see. When you show up and the soffit isn't meeting right, or you walk in and there's a bad termination of stone, or we've torn the cabinets out after we just installed them.
Right.
Right. Or that's
a problem.
Those are problems.
Yeah.
What's a problem?
What's a problem?
What's a problem is when you don't get when your excavator doesn't doesn't really set their benchmarks right, and the foundation height's wrong,
Uh-huh.
and you pour a footing and foundation without verification from a surveyor, and now you're 3 feet higher than you should be.
Uh-huh. And you have a height restriction
That's-
that you have to keep under.
And there's that's a problem.
That's a problem. or there's a post in the middle of your living room that no one caught. And you're like,
That's a problem.
that's in between a problem and a problem. It's like, we could probably span a beam and that's solvable. But yeah, that's a problem.
You know, I think that a good thing to remember is that we're going to make mistakes. Contractors are going to make mistakes.
And why? I think this is really important for people to understand why. Why are people going to make mistakes? And I'll say this, and then you can fill in. It's because this has never been built before. Your house, your custom house, this is a one-off. It's the first time. It's never been done. There's no one to be there and say, oh, we learned from the previous house that we did. This is the way to do it on this particular house. The grade will be different. The topo, the dirt will be different. Everything is going to be slightly different. And those differences begin to add up into some astronomical difference that makes your house unique. And that's why you do a custom build. And there's no way to foresee or get everything right at the outset.
The level of complexity is really is almost mind-numbing, and it's very hard to identify, because when I get a set of plans from you, the general consensus among the public is, hey, well, that's a complete working document. That's all you need to know.
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is, no, that's a third of what I need to know. When it's all said and done. And so a lot of times, problems happen because of miscommunication. That's the easy one. When you're building something between 2 individuals or 3 individuals or 4 individuals, or an architect, engineer, owners, and a designer, and the miscommunication that occurs in any one of those loops can create a chain, right, or create problems. And so, we know that's going to happen. The second is inadequate supervision. Those are problems that occur because a subcontractor doesn't know, doesn't care, won't take the time to find out, and somebody that's there in a supervisory role isn't paying attention, right? So that's a way. There are issues in our supply chain right now that are devastating. You get the wrong hardware in, or the glass is cut wrong 4 times. There's just things that will occur just because of it's just because.
Yeah, and how do you deal with clients when something happens and it's just a problem, but it's not perfect? Is there ever, I guess, let's start the question, is there ever a perfect house?
No.
Okay, thank you. Is there ever a perfect plan set?
No.
Okay. Is there ever a perfect person?
Nope.
Nope. So let's get perfection just off the table. And this is one of the, this level of expectation and stuff, and I think the foolishness of entitlement in today's just general culture of we expect professionals to be absolutely perfect in what they do. Everyone is going to make mistakes along the way.
That's right.
And everyone has to learn. And when you're designing a custom functional piece of art, as it were, that has to be lived in, that level of perfectionism will kill you as a client if you have to have everything just so perfect.
I think one of the difficulties is from the general public is to understand that a builder is just making a series of decisions, right? You may perceive those decisions to be wrong or bad decisions, but in reality, it's just a decision. And sometimes we do that because we have contacted a manufacturer and we understand that we're not going to get something in a certain time, and we have to re-harness our scope, or we have to figure out another way to do it, or we have a subcontract failure. A guy doesn't show up or does something improperly, and we have to retool that, right? Or we have weather-related issues, or we have product-related failures, right? I mean, it's just, there's always something in our world that forces us just to make decisions. If we weren't decision-oriented, your house would never get done.
Right.
So when you come and you show up and you see that the cabinets are torn out, the first question isn't, well, who screwed that up? It's well, who's being proactive? Like somebody's clearly being proactive to do something. What is that? What decision was made today?
Right.
right? Now, an owner can be as involved or as little involved as they would like to be in the decision-making process, right? They can choose what nail goes in the siding. They can choose that. They can do that. Or they can say, you know what, I'm going to leave that up to your best judgment. But just realize that at any one time, these are just a series of decisions in sequence that we have to make together. And by the way, it's not just my decisions, it might be my staff's decisions. Well, we try to tool them and we try to help them with the right techniques, the right tools, the right experience, right? We try to give them as much information, which is why you're critical. You come in and say, look, this is how I'd like to see this flashing detail. We might not execute it that way. I know you've seen that. I'm sure that there's some consternation about that.
Yeah.
Right? But again, sometimes it's an individual who's saying, I'm making a decision to move this forward, and I'm going to do it this way.
Yeah. Let's go down that path a little bit, because you asked me earlier, what are some things that frustrate me?
Yeah.
And that don't happen, and it's stuff like that. It's almost always in the details.
Sure.
And it's interesting, this discussion, because you're describing why you would take liberties to change how I've drawn it out. And it's weird because sometimes I really, really care how that goes together, and other times it's like totally up to you. Totally up to you. And from your standpoint, how would you know whether I care or not care?
That's a super good question. We deal with lots of different levels of architecture, right?
Yeah.
Like we deal with the draftsman who really just send off a set of plans of like they do not want to have additional involvement, right? And then you have the others that are like, no, every decision has to be passed through me, right?
And everything in between.
Yeah, I think that at the beginning of the relationship, it's how much involvement, it's really just a question. Clayton, how much involvement would you like to have? Would you like to give us some input on the deck assembly? Would you like to give us input on the windows? You could turn back and say, you know, this is really important that you know, I'd really like to see a stone submittal or you know what I mean? We call those submittals in our industry, right? We'll submit to you a paint color. Right now, you know, what is it exactly that you would like to have that involvement in? And my guess is you'll say, hey, listen, if it involves the structure or the overall appearance of the structure, right? I'm assuming, like if you drive up, you're like, oh, I think we want to change the roof lines, right?
Yeah.
Or no, we just got rid of those windows.
Oh, I've had builders do that to me. Drive up and be like, that just looks really, really weird. How come the roof went from this to this?
To save money.
Like, who made that decision?
Right, yeah.
No, oh, trust me, and it just baffles me every time I go and like, well, I don't understand how that decision just got made, but someone made that decision,
Right.
And that's what you're talking about.
Right.
Someone made that decision, and so then all of a sudden, decisions almost directly correlate or translate into cost.
Yep.
And so the involvement of the architect or the perfectionism involved in any given thing almost always translates into higher cost.
Yep, that's true.
Because there's more people involved in that decision, or there's more restrictions, direction, skill in any given decision.
Yeah, let me just say that we are only as good. A builder is somebody that can execute tasks in a sequential manner quickly.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's really what a builder is. So, our downfall is when it is in communication and detail. Right. It really comes down to if you give me a very detailed drawing of how something interacts, something, you know, this goes in like this and it waterproofs like this. Well, those tasks I can break into smaller tasks and I execute that perfectly and flawlessly. Now, what happens if you say, I just want to move the deck 3 feet to the right? I can do that. I can absolutely move the deck 3 feet to the right. Now, you're going to rely on me to make those decisions, and hopefully I pull that off.
Yeah.
To your satisfaction, right?
Yeah.
The better scenario would be, hey, listen, we should get somebody that has that can put that together in a model. That can help us execute this, right? And actually produce a product that looks great or works great.
Yeah.
How many times do you how many times does a builder come to you and said, well, on a 8.5 by 11 piece of paper and said, well, I just made some changes like this. I just want to, you know. right? Or the owner told me to, or the owner gave me this piece of paper.
Right. Do this instead of this.
Yeah, right.
No, I had one the other day just because of supply chain issues where it was supposed to be a 12-inch beam, 12-inch deep beam, and it came in 24-inch deep.
Oh, 24.
And so I'm sitting there looking at this thinking, where on earth does this beam go? Because the house is almost always, totally framed. And then come to find out, it's supposed to be this beam that covers this deck on the back, but if we put it where it's supposed to go, you won't be able to see out the windows.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And so we're gonna have to raise it up and embed it up into the roof, which is totally fine. And I'm thinking to myself, why on earth was the wrong beam ordered? And the only thing that made sense just in my mind was, I guarantee the framer was just sitting there thinking to himself, okay, he said, the beam I want is about 4 weeks out, or I can get this one right now. I bet you I can figure out how to deal with that one now. And so we just got that one. And and so how often does stuff like that happen?
More than you would like to know. I mean, more than any owner knows, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Your supplier calls and says, "I didn't have that, but this, but what I did have was this. I'm going to send this out to you, right?"
Yeah.
I think that the funniest one for us as a builder, it really is the Pinterest model, right?
Yeah.
We laugh about that because it's like the greatest resource we have to understand what it is that the client, what kind of vision this client wants to have,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But it's also this massive, hindrance. It's like there's this set expectation that Pinterest is going to show up, and the truth of the matter is, one, you can't afford it. I don't care.
Right.
You can't.
Right.
Yeah, I don't
Those
care.
Pinterest,
no, it's not just barnwood.
Those
it's not
Instagram.
Just, yeah, no. Right. So take whatever you think it's going to cost and triple it, and then maybe we're on the same path.
Yeah.
But again, a picture. We say that a picture, is 1,000 words.
Right.
But it's not 1,000 details.
Right.
Right. So you can give me a picture, but let's follow that up. What happens if we put that into a 3D model? Are you actually going to like that sitting in a home like that?
Right.
And the answer is probably not.
Right.
So being able to take and your vision, communicate that accurately, get it to a professional design team that can help you execute that. Mm-hmm. Then and giving that to a builder then that can execute those tasks. That's really where it's at.
Yeah. Let's go back to just being a good client. Sometimes you'll get on a job, I'll be accused of something, you'll be accused of something, client will be here.
No, it's always the architect.
It's
never, we never
trust me.
We don't make mistakes.
It's really, really weird though, because for me, I'll never throw a builder under the bus unless that builder throws me under the bus.
We're pretty, if we're worth anything, we're pretty cautious about throwing anybody under the bus, but yeah.
But it's interesting, like a client will be like, hey, how come this isn't working out the way you drew it? And they'll bring me on site. And I'll look at them like, all right, let's figure this out together. And come to find out that all of a sudden the head height on a given window system will no longer have enough depth to achieve beams.
Yeah.
And so I'll be accused of, well, why didn't you design this right? I'm like, I did design it right. Well, let's go through what may have happened. Let's come to find out on one particular project, all the windows were raised up a little bit and things were raised up a little bit. Why would windows be raised up from 6 inches off the ground to 1'6"? How much money does that save?
Plenty.
Plenty of money, because now you don't have to do tempered windows. And so the client is sitting there like, no, I want floor to ceiling windows, because that's what I want. And then a budget comes in, it doesn't meet the budget. So what did the builder do? He unilaterally decided, you know what, we're just going to raise all these so we don't have to do any of them tempered, saving you a ton of money.
Yeah.
But what was the consequences? And all of a sudden, all these things begin to roll down, and now we have issues at the top. And so that's how a sequences of decision making can just create more issues that have to be solved.
Right.
But none of it's done maliciously or honestly even wrong. It's done to try to help a client get
100%.
what they want in a budget.
Yeah. It's or a schedule
or a schedule.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a combination of all of the above. You're working with a lender. You've got 18 months to build this thing. And if you postpone your window install another 90 days, it jeopardizes your loan.
Yeah.
So again, your design team is going to take liberties. Now, you can rein those liberties in. You can say, look, these are my expectations. If you're going to take the liberty to do these, define it. Say, I don't want you taking liberties on adjusting the window heights.
Uh-huh.
Right?
Yeah.
I want you to ask permission to do those things. And then
Yeah.
let me decide what my risk is.
Yep.
And then if it's going to jeopardize a loan, maybe I figured out how to refinance that loan. What are those things that are important to you?
It's crazy. So anyway, when you're trying to be a good client, don't go in there accusing people. Go in there asking questions before you start accusing people.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And try to understand how a particular thing got a certain way.
You just showed your builder yesterday a Pinterest page that says that there's stone, and you want stone in the kitchen, right? That information may not have gotten all the way downstream yet. Well, why? Because there's so much involved in that decision that a builder has to take time, or a design team has to take time to say, how does this work? How does this do this, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lag in communication to the field, and it's not intentional, it's not malicious, it's absolutely just resource based. It's like, if you give me a Pinterest page, no problem. Clayton can't get to it today, which means I've got to go do it. Okay, fine. So now I'm going to sit down at a computer and try to draft this. But in the meantime, we've got to turn in bank docs, and we've got to get this process through the financial institution. By the way, the insurance carrier needs all of this other information. By the way, the excavator just called me yesterday.
Yeah.
And I've got a problem with the plumber tomorrow, right? And in the middle of that, I've got to do a 3D model of this stone wall that we just got a Pinterest page yesterday for.
Yeah.
Okay.
That right there was the best summary of the day in the life of a typical really good general contractor.
It starts at 4. The reason we wake up at 4 in the morning is because nobody bugs us, right?
Right, right.
From 4 to 7.
You've got 3 hours of time where you can get stuff done. Let's talk about timing, like when you want to get involved in a given project. Or the different roles between architect, builder, and designer, because oftentimes when people are looking for one of those 3 things, and maybe because of just light will end on this, people will either come to the designer, who will then bring the other 2 on, or they'll come to a builder who will bring the other 2 on, or not, or they'll come to the architect who will bring the other 2 on.
Right.
Have you found one to be better than the others, or it's just kind of a wash? It all depends on the client. And when do you like to be on board?
I'm a right out of the gates guy. And the reason is, well, I mean, I think that's a little bit rhetorical. I think we could go on, you and I, together on this, right? Because we've been involved in projects that we have a project that was handed over to me after completion, design completion.
Yeah.
We've had other projects where we've sat on the board together and right out of the gates, right? The question is do I bring value to the table as a builder? With the client early on.
And just by the way, yes. Yes, a good builder brings an enormous amount of value to the table at the outset, and I 100% encourage everyone who can actually sit down and trust a builder to bring a builder on board as soon as you possibly can in the design process, because they will help keep all the designers in check regarding budget and practicality.
I think above and beyond that, we put things in motion way ahead of completion, final document, completion. Maybe it's windows, maybe it's truss design, maybe there are things in our world that have a long lead time, and we're like, well, good thing we're involved right out of the gates, right? So we want to genuinely help with all of it. We want to be a part of that, out of the gates. It's just we feel like it's more successful altogether. Plus, we get to hear the personality of the client communicating with you and saying, I really want this.
Right. And what's nice about that, so the entire team at the outset knows the design intent of all of the decisions that are being made through the design process, so that when you're actually doing the construction, you have a better idea of why the client did a particular thing, if it's a little bit, different than what you'd just normally expect.
Exactly right.
So thanks for joining us for this conversation. We may be doing this again sometime because it was pretty useful.
I think it was fun. It was fun.
And it was fun. And we'll share more war stories. And if someone honestly wants to write in a question or send a question in that we can answer together, we'd be happy to do that too. So just in closing, thanks for joining us here at Timeless Home. Alan Newman, Tecton Builders. You can find him at
Tecton Utah, www.tectonutah.com. We do have Facebook and Instagram handles, but
stuff.
No Pinterest. We don't do Pinterest.
And Clayton Vance Architecture, and find us at all the same things. Clayton Vance Architecture on Pinterest, Facebook, So thanks for joining. We'll see you later.